You know what's fascinating? We spend 12 years, sometimes 16, even 20 years in school. We memorize formulas, we write essays, we pass tests. But here's the question nobody wants to answer. When was the last time your math teacher showed you their investment portfolio? When did your history professor pull you aside and say, "Let me show you how I built passive income"? They didn't, and they won't. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. The system wasn't designed to make you wealthy. It was designed to make you useful. There's a massive difference between those two things. Think about it. Every single day, millions of people wake up, commute to jobs they tolerate, work for 8 hours doing tasks they don't love, and then commute back home. They repeat this 5 days a week, 50 weeks a year for 40 years. And at the end of that tunnel, there's a promise, a golden promise called retirement, freedom at 65. But what if I told you that this entire model was built for a different era, an industrial age that needed factory workers, office clerks, and predictable employees who would show up, follow orders, and not ask too many questions about the bigger picture? The truth is, we've been conditioned. From the moment we could understand language, we've been fed a script. Get good grades, go to a good college, get a good job, work your way up, be grateful for your paycheck, save a little, repeat. And if you follow that script perfectly, you know what you get? You get to be comfortable. Maybe, if the economy cooperates, if your company doesn't downsize, if inflation doesn't eat your savings, if. Here's what they don't tell you in those classrooms. There's another game being played, a game that most people don't even know exists. While you're being taught to work for money, there's a small group of people who understand something fundamentally different. They understand how to make money work for them. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine two people, both 25 years old, both equally intelligent. One goes down the traditional path: college degree, corporate job, steady paycheck, annual raises, 401k contributions. By 45, they're making good money, 6 figures maybe. They've got a nice house with a mortgage, 2 cars with payments, and a decent retirement account. Now, the second person takes a different route. Instead of climbing the corporate ladder, they start learning how assets actually work. They begin small. Maybe it's a side business. Maybe it's rental properties. Maybe it's learning to invest in cash-flowing opportunities. They make mistakes. They stumble. They fail forward. But every failure teaches them something the school system never could. By 45, that second person doesn't have a job. They have a system that generates income whether they show up or not. They're not richer because they're smarter. They're richer because they learned a different set of rules. And here's the kicker. Those rules aren't secret. They're just not taught. There's no conspiracy keeping you poor. There's just a massive gap in education, a gap that keeps people trapped in a cycle of work, spend, save, repeat. So what are these rules? What's the knowledge that changes everything? First, understand the difference between assets and liabilities. Sounds simple, right? But most people get this backwards. They think their home is an asset. They think their car is an asset. But if it's taking money out of your pocket every month, it's not an asset. It's a liability dressed up in pretty packaging. An asset puts money in your pocket, a rental property that generates more rent than its expenses, a business that runs without your constant presence, investments that pay dividends. These are assets. Everything else is just stuff you own that costs you money. Second, learn the language of money. And I'm not talking about fancy financial jargon to impress people at dinner parties. I'm talking about understanding how debt works, how taxes work, how cash flow works. The wealthy don't avoid these topics. They master them. They have accountants and attorneys on speed dial, not because they're trying to cheat the system, but because they understand that financial intelligence is a skill, not a birthright. Third, and this is crucial, change your relationship with failure. The traditional education system punishes mistakes. You get an F, you fail the class, you're labeled as someone who didn't measure up. But in the real world of building wealth, failure is data. It's information. Every successful entrepreneur has a graveyard of failed ventures behind them. The difference is they didn't let those failures define them. They let them educate them. I've watched people stay in jobs they hate for decades because they're afraid of failing at something they might actually love. They trade their dreams for the illusion of security. But here's what security really means in the traditional model. You're betting your entire financial future on one company, one industry, one income stream. That's not security, that's risk in disguise. Now, I can already hear some of you thinking, but I have bills to pay. I have responsibilities. I can't just quit my job and chase some fantasy. And you're right, I'm not telling you to quit your job tomorrow and bet everything on some wild scheme. That's not strategy, that's foolishness. What I'm saying is this: use your job as a foundation while you build your education in financial intelligence. Spend your evenings learning instead of scrolling. Read books about investing, about business, about how money actually flows in the economy. Find mentors who are doing what you want to do, not people who talk about it, people who are living it. Because here's another truth they don't teach you: your network determines your net worth. If everyone around you is trading time for money, that's all you'll know. But if you start connecting with people who understand leverage, who understand systems, who understand how to create value beyond their own labor, your entire perspective shifts. And let's talk about that word, leverage. It's possibly the most important concept in wealth building. Leverage means getting more output from the same input. It means your effort today continues to pay you tomorrow, next month, next year. When you trade time for money directly, there's no leverage. You stop working, the money stops coming. But when you build something, create something, invest in something that continues to produce value, that's leverage. Think about the difference. A doctor makes great money, but they have to show up and perform surgery to get paid. An investor who owns part of a medical device company gets paid every time that device is used, whether they're on a beach in Bali or asleep in their bed. Same industry, completely different leverage. Now, here's where it gets uncomfortable. To build wealth, you have to be willing to be uncomfortable. You have to be willing to look at your current situation honestly and admit that maybe, just maybe, the path you're on leads to a destination you don't actually want to reach. Most people operate from a mindset of scarcity. I can't afford that. That's not possible for someone like me. I don't have the time. I don't have the money. I don't have the connections. These statements feel like facts, but they're really just decisions. Decisions to stop thinking. Decisions to stay comfortable. Decisions to remain exactly where you are. What if you replaced those statements with questions? How could I afford that? What would it take for someone like me to achieve that? Where could I find the time? How could I generate the money needed? Who do I need to meet? See the difference? A statement closes the door. A question opens it. One keeps you stuck. The other starts you moving. I'm not promising you that this path is easy. Building financial intelligence, creating assets, developing multiple income streams, all of this requires work, real work, the kind of work that doesn't come with a guaranteed paycheck at the end of every 2 weeks, the kind of work that requires you to believe in yourself when there's no external validation. But here's what I am promising you. This work is possible. It's available to you right now, not someday, not when conditions are perfect, right now. The information is out there. The opportunities exist. The only question is whether you're willing to step off the conveyor belt long enough to explore a different path. Because at the end of your life, you're not going to wish you had spent more time in that cubicle. You're not going to wish you had been more obedient to a system that was never designed for your freedom in mind. You're going to wish you had bet on yourself sooner. You're going to wish you had taken that chance, started that business, made that investment, learned those skills. So here's my challenge to you. Start today, not with everything, just with something. Read one book about financial intelligence this month. Have one conversation with someone who's built what you want to build. Take one small action towards creating an asset instead of just earning a paycheck. Because the life you want, the freedom you crave, the security you're seeking, it's not going to come from following the same path everyone else is on. It's going to come from having the courage to learn what they never taught you in school. The game is real. The rules exist. The only question left is, are you ready to play?